Okay, we've got Carlos Curbelo. It's middle ground. Here we go again, Carlos. Thanks for your time as always.
Thank you, Seth.
Now we've uncovered some pretty big issues in the past. Today we uncover jobs and the economy, what cannabis has to do with that, and just generally what we're talking about. So, jobs, yes, let's talk about it. But the greater economy, as we were just discussing before I pressed record, no matter who you talk to, left and right, everybody wants to talk about a downturn. Here we go, right?
Well, it's been 10 years of economic expansion. So the first thing I'll say is no one should be shocked if there is a slowdown in economic activity. Now, some of it would be self-inflicted. All of this tariff policy coming out of the White House, the trade war with China, trade wars with some allies. Thankfully, some of that has been resolved. But while I was in Congress, we were attacking Canada and Mexico with tariffs. So in part, a self-inflicted slowdown, but also timing-wise, something that we should all expect here in the coming years, whether it's this year or next year. And of course, Seth, there's that huge opportunity for the American economy that could help us either prevent a recession or at least minimize the impacts of a recession. What do you think it is?
Well, I think it's cannabis. What I love is that you think it's cannabis too.
Good. You're amazing. That's exactly right. We have this industry which is thriving despite having all of the odds stacked against it. If we were to unleash it, we would see massive job creation, many opportunities for people all over the country. So it's up to Congress.
Well, okay. So let's now dive in, right? Because we all love to talk about jobs. Here's an industry that can provide those jobs if it weren't for the fact that it's federally illegal. Having said that, we've got the Farm Bill, right? So 0.3% THC or below is legal without a rule set. So on agricultural hemp or industrial hemp, however you want to call it, what we need is a rule set from the Department of Agriculture, a rule set from the FDA. Right? How easy is that? Being that you had some time in DC there, what's your understanding from your personal perspective on how easy that is to do?
Well, nothing is easy in DC, but as tasks go in DC, those are going to be fairly smooth. And the main reason is that there's political consensus. Republicans, Democrats, the White House, the House, the Senate, are all in favor of these new policies and laws regulating hemp. So this is just bureaucratic issue, not a political issue, and that's good. And there's the example. We've already seen what a difference a simple law change with regards to hemp, what a difference it has made. All the jobs and opportunities and the investment that have come as a result of that. With cannabis, it would just be 10, 20, 30, I don't know, 100 times the impact. And who's going to benefit? Obviously, consumers, employers, employees, families, a lot of young people who I've found as I've traveled throughout the country like to work in the industry. This could be a great antidote to any kind of economic slowdown that might be approaching.
So it's interesting because we did the one that doesn't have the infrastructure really first, which is the Farm Bill. So
Right.
Farmers across the country can start, farming hemp, and they are doing it. What's interesting is that it is the tiny focus on CBD that most folks are going in with. I've been speaking with farmers and others who are saying what we're going to do is what we do with any farming product. We're going to overfarm it, right? So we're going to have way too much inventory. But what that's going to do is that's going to put us into a place where, yes, okay, fine CBD, but also now let's look at the fiber. Now let's look at what else we can produce. anything that can be made from plastic, cotton, paper can be made with hemp. So that opportunity abounds as far as agricultural industrial hemp. That's without an infrastructure. You bring up the infrastructure that's in place, which is, this cannabis economy for 0.3% THC and above. So as you look at it, if you could pull every lever, right? So let's put you in that high state where you can just do everything that Congress would do. So House and Senate, that's all Carlos. You're also the executive branch, all Carlos. Wow. And then also anything that were anything that were to come up in the judiciary, that's all you too. So what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to get at is a solution, which is why you and I do these things. What's the first thing that you would do? Is it safe banking and then States Act and then an executive order? Do you take my point? Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
What would be easy boxes to tick here?
I think we should choose the path of least resistance. We should avoid unnecessary debates. We should defer to the decisions that people in sovereign states in our country have already made. And by the way, we should respect the decisions or the non-decisions that other states have made. There are states out there, possibly, if they had a vote, where legalization of medical marijuana or adult use marijuana would fail. I have no interest in imposing my view or your view or anyone else's view on those states. So I would pass the States Act. I would make sure that this industry has access to banking so that they don't have to carry around bags of cash, and so that they can get loans and do all the things that any other business in America and any other person in America gets to do. I would obviously include in the States Act is fixing Section 280E, the tax inequity, where some of these cannabis companies are paying an 80-90% effective tax rate, which is obviously confiscatory and totally just disconnected from our national tradition. So that would be my decision. I wouldn't wave the wand and say, okay, this substance is now legal in every state and every state has to regulate it in a way that's fair. We don't need to do that. That's not in the spirit of our Constitution. I respect and honor the 10th Amendment. Let's defer to every state. The federal government will take a step back in states that have made the decision to legalize, and the federal government will also be willing to cooperate and enforce the law in states where the voters or the legislatures have made another decision. Yeah. Now, we all know where the trends are headed, and it's not crazy to think that, maybe in the next decade, every state would have legalized at least medical marijuana.
But let them get there at their own speed.
But why force them now? Let's just respect them instead.
So, okay, so we're all on the same.
So I think that means I'm a benevolent dictator.
Indeed, yes. I gave you all of the power, literally, in the United States, and you just said, just pass the States Act. I mean,
right. There's no need to force anything upon anyone.
Now, okay, so if I'm thinking with what I understand Leader McConnell's mindset to be in support of states' rights, so why would we not let this come to a vote, understanding there is bipartisan support, bipartisan sponsors? The list is very long. If you add bicameral, it's hundreds long. Why would we not let this come to a vote?
The answer is I'm hopeful. I don't think anyone should say that Leader McConnell has made a decision that this will not come to a vote. Number one, Leader McConnell does pride himself on being a constitutionalist, and I think he understands these arguments and he accepts them as valid. Number two, Leader McConnell is someone who is interested in remaining the majority leader of the Senate, as one would expect. And there's an intense race brewing in Colorado. And the balance of power could come down to the result in Colorado. And Cory Gardner has truly become a champion, I wouldn't even say of the marijuana industry, but of the people of his state who decided and voted a long time ago to allow marijuana to exist as a legal product and substance in the state. So when you take Leader McConnell's express, and by the way, he has a long record of being constitutionalist. Mitch McConnell's one of the few Republicans who voted against the flag burning amendment because he believes in free speech. So he does have some credibility when he says that he believes in defending the Constitution. When you take that and combine it with the political incentive, I would say the political imperative to get this done, I really think there's a chance that this can happen before the 116th Congress comes to an end.
Wow. All right. And so it does come down to, I've had the opportunity, as we were talking, to interview both Senator Gardner and Governor Hickenlooper. It's interesting to go back into those interviews and hear how they speak about cannabis. So it's not over here. States Act could certainly get a vote before that Congress ends. Very interesting. So once that happens, though, we're talking about jobs and economy, all bets are off as far as what we can do here. And, we've spoken about it in the past. This is agricultural jobs. This is manufacturing jobs. This is rural jobs. This is urban jobs. This is you can't go wrong here as far as if you want to add jobs.
And let me tell you, a lot of people don't talk about U.S. ag in the context of marijuana. American farmers are under a lot of stress. Obviously, these trade wars have hurt farmers, especially in the middle of the country. Here in South Florida, where I live, farmers are under stress because land bound up, and quite literally they're getting squeezed out. The crops that they're producing don't allow them to keep their land. This could all change with marijuana as the industry grows and expands. And it's retail jobs, it's investment. Right now, the American cannabis industry is exiled in Canada. People who invest in American cannabis companies are essentially sending money to Canada. We can start the process of bringing that industry or welcoming that industry to its home, to its country, to the place where it's actually operating. So the possibilities are endless. I think any economic impact study that has been done out there cannot fully capture the growth, the opportunity, the level of activity that we would see surrounding this industry.
Once again, we get to have this nice long conversation about cannabis as a solution to our greater problems. So for that, Carlos, I really appreciate your time as always, and can't wait for the next one already.
Thank you, Seth.